Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again to continue our WrestleMania series. This time we are working on WrestleMania 28, which took place on April 1st, 2012, in Miami Gardens, Florida, at Sun Life Stadium. The attendance for this event was 78,363, and the tagline being once in a lifetime. More on that tagline later. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into each and every match as we always do, give you our thoughts and reviews on each and every one, and then give you our review and overall thoughts on the Mania as a whole. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the first contest of the evening, which had Sheamus, the winner of the 2012 Royal Rumble, going up against the debuting Daniel Bryan with AJ Lee for that World Heavyweight Championship. KP, this is a very topical match. Curious to hear your thoughts on this one and what you made of the decision to have this done.
Yeah, this is a bit of an interesting start to WrestleMania, I think you can safely say. This is actually quite a nostalgic WrestleMania for me personally, because this was literally the first Mania that I watched live. Obviously, I've been a wrestling fan for a number of years up until this point, but yeah, actually having to, be able to sit down and, watch a live event, this was the first time I've been able to do that with a WrestleMania. So yeah, this brought back memories very, very quickly and early on. Once I heard Sheamus's theme go off, and I mean, Sheamus's entrance was longer than the match itself, wouldn't it? Really, but in terms of how this whole went down, there's not really much to say because it was very, very quick. It was 18 seconds in total, so there isn't really much to unpack here. But what I will say is that the matchup literally starts. The bell rings. Daniel Bryan goes to the ropes where AJ Lee is waiting for him. She gives him a good luck kiss. I got inverted like quotations there amongst that good luck. And yeah, AJ Lee gets down off of the ropes, off the apron, and Daniel Bryan turns around and gets a brogue kick from Sheamus, and that is enough for the victory and to win the world title. So it was literally as easy as that. It was over before it really began. 18 seconds on the clock, and Sheamus wins the world championship. So yeah, what can you really say? There wasn't really much to discuss about it. I gave it a 2 out of 10 because 18 seconds isn't really a lot. It was a moment. It's a memorable moment. I think you can safely say that. But yeah, in terms of, trying to really delve down into quality and detail, there's nothing to go with. So yeah, just a one hit finish. And that was all she wrote for our opening contest. Very strange start to the show, but definitely a moment that you can, say is memorable in one way or another, whether it's good or bad. You can obviously make a case for either, I suppose. But yeah, Sheamus wins in our opening contest. Nick, what did you make of this opening match? Quite interesting, the decision here to go in, sub 20 seconds. A change of the world title, especially as well here. That's quite crazy. But yeah, how did you make of our opener?
Yeah, and so you mentioning, this was the first live event you had seen. I have not yet got back into wrestling at this time, but as soon as I saw this match, as soon as I saw Sheamus, his almost fluorescent tone in the Miami Stadium, I knew that this was that match based on the lighting. I've seen the actual match, which is an 18-second clip, many times, but hadn't seen the kind of the before and after of it. So yeah, I knew as soon as I saw Sheamus and the way he was glowing in the sun, that this was that one. However, just kind of more on that. So the fans obviously were pretty mad about this whole thing. But I think even more mad were Sheamus and Daniel Bryan, who were both bumped from the main show the year before, and we're looking forward to showing everyone that why that was a mistake. Now had only 18 seconds to do so, so kind of hard to do that as well. So you could argue this worked out well for Bryan though, as many dubbed this the start of the Yes movement and hurt Sheamus more than anyone, who was supposed to be a face at the time. Obviously, that wasn't going to go well now. So just an interesting booking decision, I think overall, for all parties involved. Yeah, the bro kick is all it took. New world heavyweight champion is Sheamus, and yeah, like you said, definitely a moment, but a great match. It was not. I also gave this a 2 out of 10. Hard to rate these kind of things because it was memorable, whether for good or bad. It was memorable. but a great match can hardly not, can definitely not say that. So with that, let's go ahead and move on to the next match, which has Kane going up against a Randy Orton. KP, thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this one was an okay match. I don't think there's a side in me that really appreciates the sort of style that these two can sort of go together with in the ring. I don't know. Like I found myself watching this contest and just thinking it looked maybe a little bit awkward at times. Kane trying to attempt this more technical side of him was certainly interesting. Like I said, it looked really awkward. And it kind of dragged in parts, like for me personally. I don't know if like you'll agree with this, but yeah, it just the match itself didn't really do anything for me. I just was watching it. It was sort of just there, and yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say I enjoyed it, but I was just sort of like watching it and unfold, and I don't know, just trying to sort of like keep my interest really into it, and I just struggled to do so. It was quite difficult for me personally. Um, like I said, the match was okay in my eyes. We see towards the end of the contest, you've got Randy Orton with Kane staggered on the second rope, and Randy looks to take advantage, but Kane hits a chokeslam onto Orton from that second rope, so like an avalanche style chokeslam, and that would be enough for Kane to get the victory in this matchup. So yeah, quite interesting. Just the way this one sort of like did take place. I don't really see Kane as a technical superstar. He's more of a powerhouse and not quite the agile sort of technically gifted guy, but he definitely tried to do something here. So I don't know if this was maybe him at the one point just trying to go down this certain different style and see if it worked. But in my opinion, personally, it did look really awkward and a bit sluggish, so I didn't really rate that. But yeah, I mean, we saw Randy going for an RKO on several occasions throughout the contest, never ended up hitting it. So I guess in that sense, it does work out as it was quite like an even contest because both men were sort of like matching each other for a large period of time. So I guess that's a positive I could put on it. But yeah, I don't know. For me personally, didn't really enjoy it that much. I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. So like just a little bit above an average match, but I don't know, nothing really crazy for me personally. What did you make of this one, Nick? Did you notice that sort of side of Kane trying to come out but didn't really be convincing, or do you think maybe there's a bit more to it than that? Yeah, there's sort of like the mental game of Randy trying to hit that RKO and never actually getting to hit it in this contest. How do you rate the vibe of the match?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. He was reversing quite a few moves of Randy, and I think just the overall outcome of the match was shocking to me. I didn't think there was a chance that Randy would lose here, but he did. But yeah, Kane, every single time Randy tried to land a punt kick or an RKO, somehow Kane just, reversed it. And so I think for whatever reason, Kane had the Randy Orton's number on this evening, and obviously worked out for the best. Got that huge choke slam. I don't think I've ever seen that before. But I would say, I would put Kane and Taker in a kind of basically a room of their own. Like they don't move like the typical big men do. I give them more agility than most big men, at least the way Vince had always booked them. That typical big man. So I've always liked them better than because I don't typically like big men wrestling, but I think Kane and Undertaker are kind of a step above that. So with that, I generally did actually like this match. I think I mentioned it on last Mania. Like I'm not a huge Randy Orton fan from in-ring work. I like his, in-ring psyche and his the way he can tell a story. But as far as his in-ring, like his actual wrestling goes, I'm not a fan. But Kane is on the other side of that, where I almost always like his matches. So it was an interesting kind of dynamic and one we see a couple times throughout the night. But I did actually like this one, and I say that it's interesting. Our rating system, though, it seems like I like this match more than you, but my rating is exactly the same at a 6.5. So yeah, I genuinely did like it. I thought it all played out pretty well, and I was maybe just a bit shocked to see Kane win. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a pretty good match. So 6.5 out of 10 for me. And getting into the next match, which is a interesting dynamic as well, in my opinion. This one has the Big Show going up against Cody Rhodes for that Intercontinental Championship. The story behind this match is a very interesting one as well as the match. Big Show has always been embarrassed on the biggest stage of them all, being called a choke artist and made fun of by Cody on the build for this match. KP, you and I have hit on this many times in previous years. His WrestleMania path has been a strange one, to say the least. I think that's pretty fair to say. And funny enough, the original plan for this Mania was to have Big Show go up against the recently retired Shaquille O'Neal, NBA star, for those not familiar with it. But yeah, so it almost was business per usual for Big Show, but luckily they landed on this match instead. Big Show and Cody Rhodes for the IC Championship. KB, what'd you make of it?
Yeah, I guess this is probably one of the most normal matches for Big Show in his WrestleMania resume, which is quite interesting because yeah, you do look at the the history that he has, and I guess at least this one is a slight step up maybe from some of them. But yeah, in regards to this one and how it went down, I thought it was quite an average contest. Had a really slow pace to it, but that's what Big Show provides. I'm not going to look too much into that one because it's not exactly a shock to have that be the case. Um, it, yeah, I don't know. It was interesting because you got like a clash of styles on this one as well. Um, and I think because of the dynamic between the two men, you got Cody, who's quite technically sound and solid, and then you got Big Show, who's quite slow, powerful. Just utilizes his size a lot of the time. It's quite difficult for it to be quite a smooth transitional contest. And it did seem quite sluggish because of that at times. I thought Cody was really trying his best to implement some sort of technical showing in the contest, and yeah, there's only so much you can really do about that. It was quite a short match as well. It wasn't like the longest match that you'll see. It was I don't know how long it actually was, but it couldn't have been any more than probably about 6 7 minutes, I would say. But yeah, it was you could see Cody trying to make the most out of it and trying to make it more enjoyable, but it was basically just a case of try to do what you can, and I guess to no avail really in that sense, because we see in the end Cody goes for a disaster kick and actually hits it. He then attempts to go for a second one after Big Show doesn't really get knocked down, and once he goes for the second one, he gets caught by a spear from Big Show in midair. Big Show then hits the weapon of mass destruction in order to knock out Cody Rhodes, and that would be enough for him to win the Intercontinental Championship and actually get a singles victory at WrestleMania. So yeah, it was definitely a step in the right direction for Big Show because obviously his record's been kind of torrid, but yeah, him getting the win here, winning the IC Championship, probably one of his best WrestleMania moments. I think he'll probably safely say in that sense. So yeah, I like I say, I didn't overly enjoy this one either. I thought it was quite average and just really really slow. I don't know. I couldn't really get into it. Like kind of similar to the last match, but what I will say is the last match was a bit of a step up from this one. I gave it a 5.5 this contest. So yeah, I don't know. Just not my type of contest, but it is what it is. These things happen sometimes, and yeah, this one wasn't for me personally. What about you though, Nick? How did you rate this one? Did you agree with me in the sense of the stars are quite difficult to get them to gel together, or do you sort of see something a little bit more than that yourself?
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think, kind of what I was saying on the last match was, the clash of styles I thought worked really well in the last match. This match, not so much because Big Show does work like that typical big man style that I'm genuinely not a fan of. So, yeah, I yeah, this one was tough. I outside of being happy for Big Show to get the win, um, I think the match itself just doesn't bring a ton to the table that's super entertaining, and as you kind of alluded to, kind of on the short side as well. A pretty anticlimactic win or way for Cody to lose that title after holding it for as long as he did. But yeah, regardless, just happy for Big Show. Seeing with his wife outside the ring, very emotional. Big Show was no stranger to showing emotion, but even so, it got me a bit in the heartstrings there to see Big Show get a moment he very much deserved finally on the WrestleMania stage. I gave this one a 6 out of 10. Maybe a lot of that's just nostalgia, or not so much nostalgia, but feeling good for Big Show, and maybe that plays a part in it. But overall, yeah, not the best contest, but just a notch below the one before it. So. With that, we'll move on to the next match, which has Kelly and Maria Marunos, who apparently worked this match with two broken ribs, going up against Eve and Beth Phoenix, the latter of which is the current Divas champion. Um, yeah, I think there's some pros and cons here to be had. But KP, what did you make of this one?
Pros and cons, yeah. This one's quite up and down as well. I think more down for me personally, unfortunately. Not a great match. I have a really big complaint about this one, and I'll talk about that in a few moments. Um, yeah, the injury for Maria is quite an interesting one because they mentioned that she was on you may have to correct me on this one, Dancing with the Stars or some sort of dancing competition in in the US previously. I think it was just the weekend prior to this or something like that. And apparently she came second place. And she was injured at the time in that one as well. So that was certainly quite an interesting thing going into it. Before the match even took place, they were talking about this. So I was thinking, well, okay, hold on. If she's injured, then is she actually injured here or what? Obviously, you confirming there that she had a couple of broken ribs. Fair enough. She actually genuinely was injured, so it's a really questionable choice to have her even involved whatsoever here. And she did take a couple of smallish bumps, so maybe a little risky, but I guess fair play to her for wanting to at least do something in the matchup in that sort of sense. But yeah, I thought obviously she's injured, so this my comments on this one do seem a little bit brutal now. But she did seem slow and sluggish, and that's absolutely okay considering now I know what's happened. So yeah, to have her in this match probably wasn't the best decision. She probably could have been replaced, but I guess because she's you know celebrity guest, probably best to have her evolved in some way. As long as she's happy with it, I'm sure that's probably the main thing to take away from this one. But yeah, when she was involved, you could see Beth Phoenix was really holding back, and she's the Divas champion at this time, so she's at the top of her game, top of the division, and you can see her literally like trying not to hurt Maria, and like that's okay when it's when you're hiding it quite well, but I don't think it was hidden at all. Like I noticed it pretty much instantly. So yeah, not great in that sense. In terms of how the match went down, we see Beth Phoenix looking to gorilla press slam Maria, but Kelly saves her tag team partner. Beth Phoenix gets shoved into Eve, who stood on the apron, obviously waiting a tag or whatever, and that causes Eve to crash to ringside. We then see Beth Phoenix be rolled up by Maria in order to grant Maria and Kelly the win. My main problem with this is that the Divas champion got pinned by someone who isn't a wrestler and is actually injured. So, like, I know that would have been the plan anyway, but even if you take away the injury here, I still think it's quite a terrible decision booking wise because you got your Divas champion taking a loss to somebody who doesn't even wrestle. So, yeah, for me personally, that was quite poor. That was not a great decision, and it just makes it just makes Beth look terrible in that sense. Like there wasn't that much offense that was given to her. It was obviously just a roll up win that can happen at any time. I'm aware of that. I understand how wrestling works. But yeah, just generally speaking, it didn't sit well with me. Didn't sit well with me at all. So that was quite a kick in the slap in the face, guess you could say to Beth. So yeah, didn't really rate how this one went down at all. The match wasn't great anyway. Maria's involvement was questionable. The finish was awful. So yeah, just I think I'm done. I think I'll leave it there. I gave it a 4.5 out of 10. That probably sounds quite generous considering I've just basically just um talked a lot of crap about it for the whole time. But yeah, that's all I'm gonna go with. 4.5 out of 10. I just didn't rate this one whatsoever. Nick, can you get some positives out on this one? Anything will do. to be fair. Yeah. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I'll get the negatives out of the way first, and then I'll kind of end on a positive note. The negatives being kind of more of what you said, and that is Beth Phoenix's involvement here as the Divas champion, especially considering the injury. And granted, they probably didn't know about that for a ton of time, and I don't know what the build was like going up into this, but I'm assuming it wasn't a ton, considering they barely can get on the card most years at this point. So I would say, based on that injury, I would say replace Beth with someone else and then let Beth have an actual match. So that's kind of where my biggest complaint was, is that, this match didn't do anything for anyone outside of just put more people on the card. So either replace Beth and or have Beth actually defend the title, because still barely seen a women's championship defended, and we're already to WrestleMania 28. For some reason, I thought it was sooner than that, where we see consistent performances, but I think we are still probably a few years out based on the talent that's still involved. So I try my best not to look ahead because I don't want to be spoiled or anything of the matches that I haven't seen yet. So yeah, I'm hoping that is sooner rather than later, and I know we're just a few years out from when I get back into it, so I know we are somewhat close. But I thought it would be there by this point. But all that being said, I don't think this is the worst Mania match. We've seen a lot of really terrible, especially on the women's side, Mania matches up until this point. So I don't think this is the worst match, especially considering the non wrestler was wrestling with broken ribs. I think props to her, true grit there. But yeah, in terms of does this do anyone any favors? Not really. And as you alluded to, a non wrestler beating the women's champ, Vince always had he just loved to book the non wrestlers beating wrestlers. And in his eye, I just don't see how you make sense of that. It makes, these guys, that's their job, and it makes them seem weak. And I just don't understand how you make sense of that. But regardless, that's a lot of things I can't make sense of what that man did. And this just being the one of them, So with that, like I said, better than matches we've seen before, but definitely not the best. So, rating for me a 4 out of 10. So, make of that what you will. Let's get on to some good wrestling. Next match, Triple H going up against the 19-0 Undertaker in the end of an era match, and of course, this having Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee. The Jim Ross appearance was requested by the Dead Man himself. KB, a lot to talk about on this one. Curious to hear how you thought this one went. And love the aspect of Shawn Michaels being the special guest referee for so many reasons. So I'll let you hit on this first, but really, really enjoyed this one. Hope you did as well.
I did. Thankfully, I did. Yeah, it's hard to not enjoy this one. I mean, this one is an all-time classic in my opinion. We've obviously had some matches that so far I've not really been overly impressed or invested in, but this one was very, very different to all of that because this one was just phenomenal. It was great. Yeah, it was absolutely classic match. Big fight feel, loads of drama, tense moments. Yeah, it had basically everything you want in a really big, big match. And it has, in my opinion, one of the one of the greatest false finishes of all time. And when that situation is going to be, in play, it's going to be quite a special occasion. Let's talk about this match generally, how it went down. It was so intense. It was hellacious. It was brutal. There was so much going on inside this Hell in a Cell, and it really made the matchup sort of indicative of what these guys were trying to tell throughout this matchup, because it was an extremely important contest. When you think about the streak, when you think about everything that's been involved with Shawn Michaels and the Undertaker, Triple H last year against Taker, there's a whole lot of history just between these three men over the past 4 years on the WrestleMania stage. So this was the final edition of this sort of thing, which obviously marks the end of an era. But yeah, it was, like I said, it was intense and hellacious. We see so many things involved here, weapons galore. We see a steel chair. I think you mentioned, as well as the commentary team at WrestleMania 27, that the steel chair involved in that match should have been inducted in the Hall of Fame. I think this one's probably knocking on the door as well. This one got a lot of action and a lot of punishment in too. We saw the sledgehammer being involved, actually being used to inflict damage on people in this contest. The steel steps were used as well throughout the early stages of the contest. And just, yeah, both men absolutely spent through the late stages and just completely just taken out by the brutal onslaught that both men dished out to one another. And even Shawn Michaels was part of that, because a lot of the early stages of this matchup was basically just Shawn Michaels essentially trying to convince Undertaker to tell him that he was giving up, and essentially, because Triple H wanted that. That's what he wanted from the match. He was okay with winning the contest generally, but I think in the early stages especially, he really wanted Undertaker just to give up and just to to quit and to end this thing. But Taker, being resilient, wouldn't do that. And eventually, Michael's asking Undertaker all the time, are you going to give up? Got on the Undertaker's nerves, and he got caught in a Hell's Gates for his troubles. That would lead to Charles Robinson making a quick cameo. He would come on down to the ring. He'd get into the cell. He'd be welcomed in, and then locked in as well. But yeah, Undertaker would go for a cover on Triple H, and Charles Robinson counts the two because Triple H kicked out at two, and he gets a choke slam for his troubles, and Charles Robinson is literally laid out for the rest of the matchup. You see him a good 10 minutes later when he's still in the same position, just laid out. It's quite funny. But yeah, we talk about the false finish that I mentioned earlier, and this comes sort of a little bit after that situation. We see Shawn Michaels back to his feet, and Undertaker, he gets hit by a Sweet Chin Music after Michaels gets back up into the situation, because obviously, just got put in the Hell's Gates. He's obviously still annoyed about that. Gets Sweet Chin Music. Then Triple H hits a pedigree immediately afterwards. Everybody in the audience thinks it's absolutely over, and to be fair, rightfully so. You take two finishes, and the finishes that he took, they're not exactly little ones, are they? So yeah, quite a very dramatic, huge moment here, because the Undertaker kicks out at two, and just everybody's in shock. The commentary team, the crowd. I think Shawn Michaels and Triple H. Michaels' reaction is incredible. It just sort of like drops into the corner, hands over his face. Just the sheer sort of just character that's on show at this point is just phenomenal. But yeah, probably my favorite point of the matchup, to be fair. We get towards the later stages, and like I said, both men are absolutely worn out by this point. Taker has Triple H worn out, and Hunter gets up to his feet in the corner after pulling himself up with the ropes. It's quite a struggle for him to get back up to his feet. He's got the sledgehammer in hand as well, and he attempts to strike Taker with the sledgehammer, but Taker just quite easily stops him from doing so. Triple H, knowing that he's basically done, out of absolute pure defiance, just hits a DX sucket right in front of Undertaker. Obviously, Taker's going to be annoyed about that. He takes off the straps and hits his second Tombstone Piledriver of the match. And that'll be enough for him to get the victory inside this Hell in a Cell match. But yeah, it's absolutely unbelievable. It's a great contest. It's just absolute cinema, I guess you could say. Yeah, it was beautiful to watch. Even after the contest ends, all three men are basically just aware of the situation, and obviously Triple H and Undertaker being pretty much down and out. Undertaker does come off the better of the two this time. As obviously you go back to the year before, where Triple H lost the matchup but was the man standing at the time, and he was able to walk out of WrestleMania, but Taker had to be escorted away. This time it was Undertaker helping Triple H up to his feet alongside Shawn Michaels, and the three men just walk up the ramp together. They have a bit of a moment where they just stand over and look over at the crowd. 20-0 is up on the Tron, and yeah, the end of an era has officially come to be. So yeah, really, really incredible matchup. Love this Hell in a Cell. Probably one of the great Hell in a Cell matches of all time as well. And yeah, absolutely solid. I gave it a 10 out of 10. I don't normally give out 10 out of 10, so this is quite, rare. I think it's the fourth one I've given in this series. So yeah, not too bad at all. Thought it was absolutely fantastic. What a watch. What a match. Nick, what did you make of it? Generally speaking, anything else to add? Anything that I've maybe missed or skipped over? There's so much to take in. It's hard to go through everything. But yeah, what were your thoughts on this one? And how good was it compared to, obviously, you got the likes of Shawn Michaels and Taker, but I think this one's got to be in that conversation as well, just for being really, really good too.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to not repeat, but some of the things I just, that I love most about this match are obviously things you've mentioned. So I will hit on those, but I'll try to do so very briefly. The defiant suck it from Triple H, absolutely iconic. I have seen this match before, but everyone gives credit to the "I love you" or "I'm sorry, I love you" from Shawn to Rick a few years back, but that one is definitely up there for me as well. And speaking of which, you mentioned the Shawn and Taker matches. Obviously, this has those two guys involved in it as well, and everyone always immediately points to Shawn and Taker as the best matches, but I don't know. I'm on the fence. This one is definitely up there, as you kind of were alluding to. It definitely up there in the conversation. Um, I just right off the top of my head, I do think I like this match better than both the Shawn and Taker matches. So maybe a hot take there, but just everything about this match is just, as you mentioned, absolute cinema. Just so many good things, and it's really nothing done wrong here. I can't point to any one thing and be like, well, this they should have done this here and this there. And it's like, no, they literally corrected everything. Like even from the last year's match, which you alluded to as well. Triple H walking away, even though he's the one that lost. They rectified that here to have those three men standing at the top of the ring, locked in with the 20-0 signaling above. I mean, that's just this is for the diehards, really. I think this match is for the diehards, and I think honestly, this should have been the main event. Um, but I understand that the main event had more casual interest. But for the diehards, this I think we can argue that this was the main event. As soon as we saw this match, probably live as well for those that did. Um, we knew that this match wasn't going to be topped. There just was nothing they could do after this match that was going to top what we just saw here. Um, yeah, just an incredible spot. And you know me, I've always made it known that I have a soft spot for Triple H's in-ring work. I think he gets bashed a lot for burying and gets bashed a lot for a very slow pace. But for some reason, I've always liked his work. I think he understands in-ring psychology, and obviously, you have two of the best of doing so with Triple H and Taker, and Shawn Michaels, who is a very good mix of understanding that and also obviously has a very good in-ring ability as well for his actual wrestling. So just all of that, is just yeah. I won't carry on. I said I wouldn't ramble. I'm trying not to, but yeah, just an absolutely incredible match. Obviously, it goes without saying. Usually, when KB gives a 10 out of 10, I usually am right there with him, and this is no exception. I did give this one a 10 out of 10 as well. I know in current era we have a lot of really good pure wrestling matches. Um, and I think a lot of these, what we call perfect matches back then, would be hard to be compared to today. We get a lot of really good wrestling today, but I think I could safely say that this is a top 10 wrestling match of all time, at least for me. Even with today's nonstop, pure wrestling that we do get, yeah, this one holds a very special place in my heart. But with that, we will quickly move on to the next match. The announced involvement here will probably take longer than the actual match, but let's go ahead and do it. Team Johnny, which includes Dolph Ziggler, The Miz, Jack Swagger, Mark Henry, David Otunga, and Drew McIntyre. This is, of course, Team Johnny Laurinaitis, and they are going up against Team Teddy, which is Zack Ryder, Kofi Kingston, R-Truth, Santino Marella, Booker T, and the Great Khali. Of course, the whole point of this match is whoever wins this match will take over both Raw and SmackDown. Obviously, each have their own brand now. It's essentially a Survivor Series kind of style match. Whoever wins this match will take ownership of both shows. So, with all that being said, KP, what'd you make of this one?
So, when it comes to a 12-man tag, I think there's only so much you can really expect from a match like this. And I think we got basically a wrestling 12-man tag 101 straight out the handbooks situation here, because it was very, very standard feeling. It felt to me personally like a match you might see on maybe like Raw or SmackDown, maybe like towards the end of the show or something. And each superstar had a little bit of time in the match to sort of make some sort of statement, I guess you could say, to have a little bit of a say in the action. I think everybody did get tagged in at least once. I tried to keep up with it all as it was going through. I think pretty much everyone did anyway. But yeah, there was the classic signature slash, just I guess specific move for each person sort of moment where everyone was doing their own thing, and that sort of led to the finish. So in that sense, another wrestling 101 for these sort of matches, that always tends to be the case. They have these sort of moments involved. And yeah, once the match is getting towards those late stages after this sort of like sequence that I mentioned a moment ago, um, Zack Ryder's on a roll. He is absolutely cruising at this point, and he looks for the Rough Rider on Miz, but instead of hitting it on Miz, Miz sort of like pushes him up, and instead of hitting Miz, he lands on Dolph Ziggler, so hits him with the Rough Rider instead. Zack takes Miz down before then looking for the broski boot, and Eve Torres, who is basically like sort of in a relationship thingy here with Zack Ryder at the time, she comes into the ring and joins him to sort of like set up the broski boot, which is the woo woo woos. And yeah, because she does so, that accidentally causes distraction with the referee sort of like looking to, I guess, just remove Eve from the ring, I guess. And Zack, obviously aware of the situation, sort of distracted by that, and he loses focus, therefore allowing Miz to take advantage. He hits a skull-crushing finale onto Zack Ryder, and that would be enough to get the victory for Team Johnny. So yeah, that would be Raw and SmackDown in control for Laurinaitis after this one. And yeah, it just was pretty average and standard. There wasn't really much to retake in terms of quality. It just had a really generic feel to it. And yeah, I don't know. It's just, I guess that's what they were looking to do, just to give everybody a little bit of a moment here on the WrestleMania stage, and to allow a lot of names to be showcased in whether whether it's a good way or whatever. You could obviously argue that, but there were a lot of people involved, so that's the main take from this one. After the end of the contest as well, we do see Eve in the ring with Zack Ryder, and obviously the SmackDown team are consoling themselves not getting the victory, and it gets worse for Zack Ryder because Eve Torres turns on Zack, kicks him down below, low blow style kick, and she basically just removes any sort of interest that she has in Zack Ryder, and yeah, leaves the ring, walks up the ramp, and doesn't really care about what she's just done. So yeah, bad night at the office for Zack Ryder, loses the matchup, and then yeah, gets kicked down below by the person that he trusted. So yeah, not great. The match itself, though, it was okay. It was standard, like I said. I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. So not really much to take away from this one, except for it just felt very generic. Nick, how'd you make of this one? Was it as generic for you as well, or did it have at least something else to go with? But yeah, you got to look at Miz as well. Main eventing last WrestleMania and now being part of this. At least he got the win, I suppose. That's something.
Yeah, good shout there for Miz. Obviously, make of that what you will, but think of this because the Miz got a main event win before The Rock did. So, there's something a little bit for him to chew on. Yeah, it's hard to organize a match with 12 people involved, and that's just the people that were actually involved. Obviously, you have a lot of people accompanying them to the ring as well, which the likes of Hornswoggle and Eve, I believe Brie or Nikki Bella was in there as well. So yeah, just a ton of chaos. And how do you organize all that? Your guess is as good as mine. And this is their best effort. A lot of people just getting shown on the WrestleMania card here. Good for them, I suppose. But you could argue in this kind of match, really, will that ever be remembered? Maybe for them it will, but for us, I think it's safe to say that not really. So nonstop chaos, and now Johnny Laurinaitis has ownership of both Raw and SmackDown. So make of that what you will. I'm assuming that meant a lot more to you at the time, but yeah, watching back now doesn't obviously do a ton for me. But yeah, rating for me, I gave this one a 4 out of 10. Seems low, but yeah, just really wasn't anything here that made me want to watch it again, and certainly not. I don't think this match is on anyone's top 10 list or anywhere close. So, with that, we'll move on to the next match, which the previous match does have some stipulation on, and that is Johnny Laurinaitis confronting CM Punk backstage, telling him that if he gets disqualified, he does lose that WWE Championship. So, wasting a little time to take advantage of his new position. This match has Chris Jericho going up against CM Punk for the WWE Championship. KP, what'd you make of this one?
Yeah, not a bad match overall. This one pretty decent, to be fair, in my perspective. I thought the opening stages were quite interesting, and this match generally was just it had like an interesting feel to it because it sort of like felt like it was in parts going forward. Bit more on that as I'm going along here, but the opening stages focused heavily on the stipulation. Obviously, you've mentioned it a moment ago. If Punk got disqualified, he loses his title. So Jericho was sort of playing into that. The whole feud was quite personal going into the matchup anyway. And yeah, it was basically all about like CM Punk's family and how they are a little bit different to what CM Punk is with his sort of like values, being straight edge and things. So Jericho, knowing the history of like his sister and his father and like people like that, very close to him, sort of using that as mental mind games throughout the matchup early on, trying to sort of like get into the head of Punk and trying to get him to lose his mind and just get disqualified as a result. Obviously, Jericho would win the title if that was the case. So quite smart from him on that sense. But yeah, it got to a point where in the middle section of the matchup, for me personally, I was disappointed because I really like both of these men just generally with their technical ability, I think they're both great. But for some reason, the middle stages just kind of dragged for me, and I don't know, I just didn't really enjoy that particular part. I can't really understand why, because it it really is a match that I should like, and like the whole way through. But I just thought the middle bit just sort of like let it down a little bit for me. But not to say that it was a bad match. It was still good. It was still full of quality, but just I don't know. It just seemed to go a bit slow for me personally, speaking. But yeah, towards the late stages though, absolutely terrific. This is probably my best part of the matchup. The last like probably like 4 or 5 minutes. It was just a very very good display of technical wrestling, and I think that was maybe what I wanted to see a bit more of in the middle of the matchup. Maybe they wanted to sort of like leave it so that the final sequences were extremely good, which in that case mission accomplished because that was exactly the case. So yeah, maybe that's the reason. So I can understand that. We see in the end of the matchup, Punk and Jericho, they have a series of back and forth transitions in those late moments, like I mentioned a moment ago. And Jericho attempts to go for the walls of Jericho after getting out of an Anaconda device. But Punk resists that sort of transition and actually locks in the Anaconda device again. Jericho had previously gotten out of it by sort of kneeing the back of Punk's head. And this was quite smart because on the second Anaconda device, sort of like it weighs up for the situation again. Jericho's obviously remembering, oh, I got out of it last time by kneeing the back of Punk's head. So he does that a couple of times, but Punk sort of is able to sort of like move himself, like transitions his body weight over a bit further onto Jericho's like upper chest and his sort of neck area, and Jericho's no longer able to actually knee Punk in the back of the head. You can see him physically trying to do so, but he can't do it. Jericho starts to panic, starts flailing about. He doesn't really understand how he can get out of the hold anymore, and eventually does sort of succumb to the Anaconda device and taps out. So in that sense, like I said, I really did enjoy the late stages. I thought the absolute technical chain wrestling, just the transitional aspect, was just fantastic, and just that finish was really nice as well. Smarts from I guess both men in certain stances there, and just yeah showed the sort of like thinking that sort of goes on between the stars in the ring, in those closing moments. So really really liked it. It was a great finish, and yeah, was top notch in that on that sense. But yeah, just that middle bit I just couldn't really enjoy too much for some reason. And yeah, that opening being very much heavily on the stipulation did sort of like I guess come at a cost of some speed and a little bit of pace to the matchup. But I thought it was solid. I gave it 7.5 out of 10. I really did like the contest. It's just, yeah, that middle bit I would have loved to have, for some reason, I've enjoyed a bit more, but like somehow enjoyed a bit more. Not sure what the reason was, but yeah, there must have been something in there for me. Either way, though. Nick, what did you make of this one? I know Punk's not normally the kind of guy that you sort of, say that you like watching in the ring. But I do know that Jericho is someone that you are quite fond of. How do you think this one went with these two guys? And do you kind of agree with me that there was like a bit in the middle? But those closing stages were great, right? I'm sure you can agree with that.
Yeah, and this is yet another. You had the Kane and Randy Orton, you had the Big Show and Cody Rhodes, and now you have CM Punk and Chris Jericho. And of course, I'm referring to kind of a styles clash, if you will. I feel like, yeah, you kind of alluded to it already that I am not the biggest fan of CM Punk's actual wrestling ability, but I am a fan of his in-ring psychology work, and I think he is one of the best at doing so. And I feel like that's kind of what this match is. And I think for me, especially from Jericho's side, trying to get Punk to kind of cave into those thoughts, which he was, toying with him before the match and obviously during the match, had his hands behind his back, telling Punk to hit him with the chair, clearly trying to get into his head. And I think the kind of the middle stages that you refer to that are kind of like slower pace, to me, that just felt like that's how CM Punk operates in ring. He always has kind of a slower part of his match. Um, and maybe that's just me over critiquing him. But yeah, I think this is a good clash, and I think it works for the most part. You kind of alluded to it was a longer match, and I think they were just trying to hit on that, kind of mind games being played by Jericho, and really didn't have any issues with it. Yeah, just definitely a slower pace, but again, as I mentioned earlier, you were never. I think everything seems a little duller in comparison when you have it following what dub one of the best WrestleMania matches of all time, and that of course being the Taker and Triple H match. So I think that probably played a part. I think if this match goes on before that, probably not being as critiquing it as much. At least that's kind of where my head's at. Yeah, but I really enjoyed this one. I think for Punk obviously having to win there because of the stipulation and the mind games being played by Jericho. But for some reason, Jericho's heel abilities have always just made me laugh. Like him during the match at the beginning, just asking Punk, how's your father? How's your sister? It's just something about the way he does that just has always kind of made me laugh. But he's obviously one of the best heels in my opinion. But he just is so over the top sometimes, and I really get a kick out of that. But yeah, I really enjoyed the match overall. Gave this one an 8 out of 10, so just a notch above yours. So it's clearly we're close to the same page there. But again, it was just any match that followed that Taker Triple H match was always going to be hard to compare, in the right mind, at least in my head. So, with that, let's go ahead and get into the main event. Of course, this is John Cena going up against The Rock in a once in a lifetime match. Um, until it wasn't. So unless there was enough money in it, it's a once in a lifetime match. So crazy to think that the build for this match started a year before, if you recall the happenings of that main event of WrestleMania 27. Obviously, that kind of planted the seeds. And yeah, this was The Rock's first main event win, which is a crazy stat in itself, considering the times that he has been in the main event. Now, just kind of a caveat there before we get corrected. Main event in the traditional sense is, regardless of what WWE tells you, is the last match of the show. So this obviously wouldn't include the likes of like the Hollywood Hogan match with him and The Rock. That would be just an example. But yeah, main event in the traditional sense, and that is the very last match of the night. This is the first time The Rock has ever won. So, KP, thoughts on this match? I think these matches, obviously referring to this one, the one that comes the year after, if you're a wrestling fan at all, you know that the once in a lifetime match was not that. But watching it live, I'm curious to hear kind of what your thoughts were when you watched this one, the first time and thinking it was an actual once in a lifetime match. Because I think a lot of people kind of think on this now as well. It wasn't a once in a lifetime match, and I think most agree that this one is better. But yeah, curious to hear your thoughts kind of on how all of that unfolded. And The Rock obviously hadn't been in action for quite some time, and curious to hear kind of what you thought of his in-ring abilities being away for as long as he has, and then obviously being put up against John Cena, who I think a lot of people can agree that he is a polarizing character. And I'm curious if you saw some similarities here between this match and the Rock and Hogan match. I think there are a lot there for at least for me. So curious to see kind of what you thought on all of that.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fair to compare this one similarly to that of the Rock and Hogan contest from a number of years ago. It does seem to have that sort of spectacle about it, the the sort of like grand sort of power that it possesses on a card, and it is sort of a mashup of eras, coming together. And at the time, to answer your question, it did feel absolutely huge. When I was watching it live, obviously having been in wrestling for a while before it, knowing obviously the stature that is John Cena at the time, his a couple of years prior to this, especially just constantly in the WWE title picture. Yeah, he was obviously the face of the place. So going up against The Rock at this time felt kind of larger than life, for me back when I was younger. So this one did seem absolutely huge. But yeah, looking back on this one, I think it is a good contest. There's no doubt about it. It has a really, really big fight feel. The crowd are absolutely, electric for this one. They're really, really into it. I couldn't help but notice a lot of the time when I was watching this matchup back, during the case of this review, that a lot of the fans were basically just absolutely going wild for certain moves and like little taunts and things here and there, and they were really, really into it. So yeah, they were definitely up for this main event, which is great to see. I describe this one in three parts. So you got obviously like 3/3 of the contest here. So for the opening third, I thought it was basically a case of both men just sizing each other up in the early stages, just sort of like really trying to sort of like test each other one out. We saw a little bit of like chain wrestling, sort of like little bits here and there, if you can call it that, and like a bit of like a strength game, sort of like trying to outpower the other one. There are a couple of different elements in those early stages, and just a way they can sort of like try and get over the other one, like just get on top of them, get the mental games in those early stages. That was quite cool to see. That led to a middle section where we saw the intensity, go up quite a level, to be fair. And we see both men hitting their big moves, and neither being able to get a victory over the other after hitting those big moves. We see an attitude adjustment. We see a rock bottom. So yeah, that doesn't really come to anything in that sense. And then yeah, we can see the sort of like the almost like the clogs ticking in their heads. How to sort of like get a victory here, how to get this one over the line. And we see then that go into the third part of the matchup, where it felt sort of like a chess match, really, where they're just trying different things to try and secure the victory. And it really does go from like a standard pace throughout the contest into a bit of a like a big sort of feel towards those late stages. You know the end is coming, but you don't know how exactly we're getting there. And it was basically just seeing what exactly would take place to to see who was going to win this one. And when we get to those late stages, Cena hits a second AA of the contest after catching Rock and powering him up to hit the move. Rock is actually on the top rope and he goes for a dive, which we don't see from Rock very often. That's what I meant about playing a chess game here. Both men just trying different things, going down into the well, just trying to do different things from their arsenal. And yeah, like I said, Cena catches him, goes for a second AA of the matchup, hits it, and Rock kicks out at 2. Cena, seemingly out of ideas, has no real idea what to do at this point. Eventually gets back up to his feet and attempts his own people's elbow on the Rock. Yeah, as he's going to do so, he bounces off the ropes once, goes for obviously the second bounce off the ropes, and once he does so, Rock gets up, hits his second rock bottom of the matchup, and that would be enough for Rock to get the victory here over John Cena. So yeah, it was a pretty good contest, to be fair. It had a kind of like a standard pace going through the matchup. It wasn't exactly a a very quick contest, not fast paced, but it didn't need to be. Didn't need to be at all in this one, and it had that sort of larger than life feel to it, and that allowed these two to make every sort of moment feel big and just grand. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. It went through really steadily, quite nicely. The flow was good, and yeah, both men just sort of like I guess just had an answer for most things, and just were able to cancel each other out on most occasions. So when we do talk about those matches like Hogan and Rock, I think that one was a bit better comparatively speaking to this one, but this one was still very good, and it was still a very big matchup. I gave it one an 8 out of 10, so it is up there with the higher ratings, but I think it did miss a few things for me to be truly one of the absolute greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. I think it's just maybe my style of wrestling doesn't really sort of go into this one. I thought the drama levels were good, but I don't think they were to the level of that of Hogan and Rock. So I think, just generally speaking, I think this one is a touch below that one. If I'm right, I gave that one a 9 or a 9.5 out of 10. So I think this one sitting at an 8 for me is absolutely fine, because I think that other one is a lot better than this. Well, not a lot better, but a fair bit better than this one. So yeah, that's just my sort of general take on this one. But it was a great match. Like, I'm not going to say it was bad at all, because that would be completely a lie. But yeah, I did really enjoy this one, but just yeah, wasn't quite hitting those heights that maybe the other ones have given. And yeah, once in a lifetime. I think this would have been great to have left it here, to be honest with you, but obviously we do know that we do get a second part the year after. So yeah, it is what it is. Nick, what did you make of this one? Compared to speaking, how did it feel? Talking about those other matches that are the biggest WrestleMania main events and whatnot. Where does this one stand in comparison to those? And how did you feel that John Cena and Rock, did they deliver on this stage once in a lifetime? How did it feel? Was it big enough compared to how it sort of felt, going into this one with the build and all that kind of stuff? What did you make of it?
Yeah, the drama was certainly there. The crowd eating out of their hands, which is great. And like we both kind of alluded to, similar to that of Hogan and Brock. But in terms of kind of comparing the two, I think this one doesn't quite hit those levels. Which you say what you want about Cena and The Rock and even Hogan, like none of them I don't think are listed on people's top in-ring wrestling abilities. So you're kind of relying on that kind of pop and big time feel, the drama, all of that. So I think, it's for someone like you and I who are, definitely wrestling purists. We want to see the wrestling, full throttle. We don't more so care about that than the drama. Obviously, we want the drama there, but drama alone will not net us an incredible match for the most part. So um, yeah, I would agree with you in that I don't think this one matches the level of Rock Hogan. But I will agree and kind of add to that, had this match been the only one, um, I think people would probably look back on this more fondly. I've obviously seen both of those matches, and we can get to the next one when we get to it. Um, but I do generally think that having both of those looking back on does kind of affect the overall kind of feeling, at least that I have, and I'm assuming most would agree, that kind of makes this feel less important because of that. So with all that, yeah, the match was better than I thought it was going to be when before I first saw it. Um, and it was just a fun moment. And a lot of times it is hard to have a fun moment and actually good in ring ability or a good ring match. And this one does deliver that, just not to the levels that that you and I would both rate it like a 10, for instance. So I think with all of that, yeah, it is a good main event, but definitely not great, and definitely not the best match of the night. Obviously, kind of alluded to that several times already, so won't hit on that again. But yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for me, if this was a once in a lifetime match and they left it at just that, I think I'm probably speaking more highly of it. But with that, let's go ahead and get this one wrapped up. KP, WrestleMania 28. What were your highs? What were your lows? What were your you know uh, matches that you have to go back and watch? What were the things they did wrong? Let us know kind of where your head's at on this WrestleMania as a whole. Of course, give us your overall rating, and we will get this one wrapped up.
Yeah, this one's an odd one for me. Obviously, I've got that nostalgic element that goes into this one, so it brings back some really good memories. But at the same time, going through the card, I think there's a lot of matches that really disappointed for me on on a scale of quality. Obviously, you've got Sheamus and Daniel Bryan at the start of the show. 18 seconds. What can you take from that one? Give them like 7 or 8 minutes, and they're going to put on a really good matchup. So unfortunate, that one was too short in my opinion. You look at the likes of Kane and Randy Orton, which I've expressed my grievances with. Same with Big Show and Cody Rhodes, the women's tag team match, and then the 12-man tag team contest. So a lot of the contests really were quite disappointing in my perspective. But then you do have one of the greatest matches of all time being Undertaker and Triple H in that Hell in a Cell, which was absolutely phenomenal. Jericho and Punk putting on a really good contest, then Rock and Cena putting on a pretty solid match as well. So yeah, I think in terms of like a pros to cons, 5-3 in favor of the negatives. My overall average comes out at a 6.5 out of 10 here. So yeah, I think it's like kind of consistent for WrestleManias. I think in the early 20s, I think a lot of them were around 6.5 for me around that time. But yeah, it's just one of those situations. You're not going to please everybody, and there are a lot of things in this one that I didn't particularly agree with, but it has a special place in my heart because it is the first WrestleMania I watched live. So for me personally, it does sort of bring back some really nice, fond memories of some good times. So yeah, I think it does have a bit of a personal feel for me. So I do enjoy it for what it's worth. And yeah, there's just a drop of quality, some questionable choices, but that comes with every WrestleMania. You're not going to get a perfect one, are you? So yeah, not too bad to be fair, but I think definitely a bit of an improvement on 27, that's for sure. What did you make of this one though, Nick? Obviously, you got your your great match in there. You got your other ones. You got your questionable choices. But how does this one compare in the grand scheme of our WrestleMania series so far?
Yeah, similar light. I think, first and foremost, definitely better than 27, which isn't saying a ton. But typical WrestleMania has its lows. Obviously, the opening contest really hard to rate something like that. So I think it would be a more accurate kind of depiction of Mania if we weren't to rate those matches. But alas, we have made the decision to rate them, and so unfortunately, that does kind of bog it down a bit, because I think you take out that match, and I think it is a much better WrestleMania than 27 than the score kind of alludes to. Um, but then you have obviously the 10 out of 10 match from both of us for Triple H and Undertaker. That obviously raises it quite a bit. Overall, average out for me is a 6, which seems low. But again, like I said, that 2 kind of really bogs it down. So we have that every single year. And I think I make that same point every year. So for every WrestleMania, yeah, definitely a better WrestleMania. Still some issues for sure. But I think just a general vibe of it felt like a WrestleMania, whereas 27 did not, at least in my eyes. Yeah, obviously the highlights being Triple H Undertaker, and then just kind of obviously very much enjoyed Jericho Punk, and then the Cena Rock was just, it was a cool spectacle, regardless of how they kind of watered that one down. WWE has a habit of doing so. When they hit something really big, they have to try to capitalize on it. So at the end of the day, they are a business, so we can't really fault them for that. But yeah, pretty good WrestleMania. Definitely a nice kind of palate cleanser from 27. So yeah, with that, enough about us. Let us know what you all thought of WrestleMania 28. Your favorite matches, your least favorite matches, what they did right, what they did wrong. We'd love to hear back from you. And as always, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, as that does help us out tremendously. But for now, that is WrestleMania 28 in the books. We'll, of course, be back shortly with our Raw, NXT, and SmackDown recap as well. Have a couple more weeks until we hit Saturday Night Main Event and Royal Rumble. But until next time, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. Until next time, we'll see you soon. Take care.